That's fair. Thanks.
Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you guys for joining us at the Collective Rising series. If you haven't been here before, Collective Rising is really about me bringing a space for lots of beautiful soul-led, heart-led entrepreneurs sharing their magic and their gifts to help with humanity's raising their vibration, shifting their frequency to having a better, more fulfilling life. Now, today, when we're talking about this, we're kind of leaning into the nervous system. So how do we help people to find calm and peace and to feel higher frequencies instead of being tripped into the chaos that happens with the sympathetic nervous system, leaving us in our head in fears and doubts, emotional overload, you triggered heavily. So I'm going to introduce today our first special guest for today, and this is Nancy. And Nancy, I would love for you to introduce yourself because you know your magic better than I do.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. My name's Nancy. I also have a beautiful bestowed spiritual name of Ma Uma. So some folks might know me as Uma. And I'm here today to share the gift of the shaking medicine technique. And today we'll be talking about how this modality has helped me and how I share the shake across Australia and what it can do for you as well, whereby the modality that I utilize is a really magnificent and very simple, safe and sustainable tool for activating the vagus nerve superhighway in your field. So I call it an energetic cleanse or energetic hygiene. Just as you might go to the gym to get physically fit, work to get financially fit, you might go and see your family for an emotional lift. The shaking medicine tool is all about activating your own innate evolved mechanism for releasing tension and trauma from your field. And it's a very, very simple way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system's rest and digest function to gently and self-invitationally guide you through to homeostasis, which is a beautiful space to be, where you're in that harmonious, balanced state where your nervous system isn't triggered into the fight, flight, freeze mode, where you're able to lean into your rest mode so that when the invitation comes up in a safe way, you're able to release anything that has wound up within you from that space of a trigger. And we all have this capability to go from our sympathetic activation into our parasympathetic activation. It's not very widely known that we have this magical tool because a lot of us have been taught from a young age, or stop that tapping, stop that shaking. Whereas I'm here to share with you this very sweet nugget of knowledge that actually it's good to shake. Please keep shaking. Allow yourself to shake. When you feel the involuntary shaking coming on, it's because your body is telling you that it needs this right now, and that usually this is done in a safe space. Sometimes it might be after a car crash or a trauma that your body is shaking and you can't stop, and that's okay as well. That's the releasing, well, because generally you're safe if you're still alive after a car crash. Your body's ready to release that shock of that survival mode that's kicked in. So that's a bit of an extreme example, but it's something that's relatable to a lot of people. Is when they've had a shock or a trauma, their body will shake once they've come through the space of the survival activation or fight or flight or whatever else it is that you've been programmed through that situation. And then when you can let go of the charge, then you can come back into homeostasis and be ready for the next survival trigger to come through, because we don't always want to be stuck on repeat and just have the same patterns coming through, because each situation presents differently, and we don't want to be like an animal stuck on broken record. When there's different situations that come up, we need to be able to respond rather than react.
I love that. And reason this is really close to my heart is, if anyone doesn't know me personally, I'm Kelli Hurley, and I own Energetically Inspired, which is kind of the founder group of this whole collective rising. But as a healer and a transformational coach, I actually specialize in stress energetics. And it was through my own experience, right, of where learning what was happening in my own body through my own PTSD, through severe trauma that was happening from abuse to, just change in environment through divorce and so many other things that were happening. And my nervous system was just overloaded, that it was basically, I call it a heightened state, right? Where it's just turning on all the time over the simplest and silliest of things. So a lot of the time people think the fight and flight or the sympathetic nervous system is really linked to just the trauma or the PTSD. But when it's turned on into this heightened state, and every time we step into a new environment or there's, something new, it's supposed to turn on for a moment and just assess quickly and then turn back off. But when it comes into this heightened state, it leaves us in what can be like what I call a red flagging situation, where our mind is just negative. It's just constantly looking for ways to keep you safe. But in that safety is actually uncomfortable. You feel condensed, you feel heavy, you have a lot of negative head thoughts. There's just your option to change and grow is not available in that space. And so through my own experience of healing my nervous system as well, and allowing myself to drive in the driver's seat to recognize when it was turning on. And mine was turning on just at the sound of my phone beeping. I could walk on the street and a certain car could drive past, and the sound of that car from past experiences was triggering me into this state. And I would notice, because my head would get just noisy, and my tolerance level for my kids, the noise that they make, of course kids are loud, right? I couldn't tolerate, because my head was so noisy, couldn't add more to that. And it was also blocking me. I was reactive more than, and yeah, it was just so much was happening in my life at that time. But then I noticed, even as I healed, and I was like, each time I would start to level up or dive into another part of my own healing journey, whether it was inner child or all the different layers. I'm not, we're not here for all that. There would be that contraction again that would happen in my nervous system, because it would sense that things were changing, right? So a lot of people too, when they're healing, I say to people, the TV gets noisy, and what that is that you're witnessing it, because you're actually seeing it. Before, you just didn't notice it. You were just running in the subconscious programs and just reactive and projecting blame or whatever judgments, that kind of thing. But when we start to see the TV, it means we're actually the witnesser and the observer. And some people say, I just want to heal this fast. Well, you're praying or putting an intention into the field that TV is going to play loud, because it's going to allow you to, each time it plays, for you to pivot and with the right tools. And this is where it gets really important. So nervous system is something like a foundational piece that I've taught in every program that I've ever worked with everyone, because you want change, you have to be in the parasympathetic system, right? You have to be able to reset yourself and connect back in and witness what's going on in presence. But connecting into the body, a lot of the time when we're in the sympathetic nervous system, our energy's contracted, our autonomic systems are turned off, and we're in our head. We're not actually in the body anymore. We're actually caught up here. And then people they have all these tools, but they're just not working. Nothing's shifting, because they're not shifting themselves out of the sympathetic nervous system into the body. So through my own experience, and it's kind of led me to one of the best healers here on the Gold Coast, like ranked organically, because people get results. Because the first thing I'm doing with any of the work that I help with is starting with the nervous system. And there is beautiful tools. And when Nancy said that she's got the shaking modality, I haven't experienced it myself, but I'm all for it. Everything, any way that people can transform their lives. And the body is intelligence. If you were to Google photos of asking what a stress response was you'll see people like this, you'll see images of like this, all this noise and, confusion, and people are doing this. There's a reason why, because your body's intelligence. There is actually an energetic system that runs part of the nervous system through that point, which we'll go into partway through this. But it's part of the triggering system. It's kind of like the meridians, and people know of acupuncture. It's one of those systems that runs part of that. And so your body already knows, but people are taught to, oh gosh, I've got a headache, but they don't know how to release that, how to bring that system back into balance, right? So yeah, this is a subject that's really close to my heart, and it's one that I believe everyone using various different modalities, because you cannot have enough tools in your toolbox when it comes to the nervous system. And I didn't just use one, I used so many. And people said, what was the one thing that allowed you to break through your PTSD and start to be in the driver's seat of your nervous system? And I was like, I was just doing everything and anything because I wanted a better life. All I knew is where I was at was not comfortable. I didn't want to be there anymore, and I needed change. And I had 2 kids, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So they were my strength, my leverage to say, I need to keep stepping forward. I need to keep stepping up that ladder and find ways to break through to find balance within my life. So I would love to know, Nancy, is there a little bit of a story that led you to the shaking? Because most people don't go and find some sort of modality without, like for me, learning all the skills I learned was through actually healing myself, right? And then now gifting this knowledge to the world. What led you? Are you comfortable to share as
I
to?
can, yeah, sure, Kelly. I got quite a very interesting, I guess sometimes I paraphrase as a bit of a sob story that I often share with people when they ask. I won't go into everything, but in 2020, I'd had quite a intense personal situation that was quite harrowing, and it caused my entire world to shift and to turn upside down. And at that point, I was alone and in a really bad way. And my yoga teacher reached out to me and said, "Oh, everything's gone online, and I've got this credit for you from the yoga studio, and we've got this online TRE facilitator. I think you should use this." And I said, "Oh, don't know what that is, but if you recommend it, I'll go and do that." So it was a 4-week course of TRE, which is trauma release exercises, which is another shaking modality that's been around a little bit longer than the shaking medicine technique. And I participated. I only made 3 out of the 4 sessions, and it absolutely blew me away. And the recent experience that I'd had was shifted out of my body, and a very, very old experience that I'd had was also shifted out of my body. And through that first introduction into the involuntary shaking through the TRE method, I really sat with that for about a year and a half. And I was always recommending to people online when they say, I've got all this trauma and I really don't know how to get through it. I'm hypervigilant and, I really want to have a regulated space. And, this is what I feel prompted me to kind of just say to people, "Oh, you should try TRE. Yeah, it's really good." And then, of course, down the track in November 2021, I had this shaking medicine teacher training come across my feed on Facebook, and I was like, I wonder what that is. I'm going to look at that. That sounds familiar, like that thing that I always tell people they should do, the shaking. And then I rang up. I did this call with Dr. Keith Motes, who's the founder of the Shaking Medicine Foundation and created the modality, and a good friend of mine now. And I said, "Oh, what's this thing? I'm in. I want in." And I was like, straight away the next weekend started teacher training. I hadn't even really done a shaking medicine class, which is now a bit of a prerequisite, and some other beginners sessions before the teacher training is embarked upon. And I was hooked straight away. And before I'd even finished the teacher training, I was sharing it around fire circles with sisters, and just so excited about this modality that I found that's basically all about coming home into self, finding your need, finding your internal space to work in, basically shadow work, and finding those parts of you that are stuffed and squashed down. And I had so much. I have constant grief. I have constant difficulties in life that I have to overcome, that I have no control over, has taught me to let go of the things that I can't control, basically, and to lean into my surrender, or allowing my body to show me the way through whatever the blockages are in the body, to trust that the wisdom is held there to help me out, and to find that space of regulation, so that also what I find, the co-regulation capacity that I have now with others is just phenomenal. I can sit in a space where people are really totally dysregulated, and I'm calm, I'm centered. They feel my frequency and it calms them down. People always saying to me, "You feel so calm," and I really love the calm way that you speak. And I've never really been someone that's a calm person, like in a way of, I'm very like extroverted, I'm very over the top, I can talk all day long. And now I am doing so from a space of a very regulated nervous system. So it's felt, it's the frequency that I hold is felt very strongly by those that are tuned in, I guess, and people who are really able to connect with me on a deep level of trust can lean into that frequency and that space for themselves when they step into this world of the involuntary shaking mechanism. They also can release very powerfully because they are leaning into my guidance and my support. And so I've just been going from strength to strength, and I've created, an Instagram and Facebook group, Tremor Remedy, and it's been like a bit of a labor of love. I'm not someone that really loves typing on computers and going into that head world. I'm all about leaning into feeling and hedonistically living and all of this. So I'm pivoting a little bit now to be able to bring this work to more people and respect the world of the internet and the online space, and creating a website and all the things so that I can bring this work to people, like my lived experience of domestic violence and stolen generation and homelessness and things like this, that I can bring to not just the spiritually aware conscious community, because yes, that's mainly where I've been doing my work, in the festival community, but also for those that are really struggling with the difficulties that we have in this world currently, and to be able to bring that to everybody, rather than just those that are kind of switched in and have time to look on Facebook and everything.
Mm-hmm. And I do love that it was sort of like almost like your soul, you were probably putting it out there to the universe, like, hey, I need help here. And then it's your yoga teacher going, hey, I think this can help you. And I love that that's how a lot of our gifts get shown. People put out some sort of prayer, or I need help, and that all of a sudden these things land in front of us. And that's why I created the Collective Rising, because there's so many people out there saying, help, I need help, but I don't know who or how. And that was a big part of my journey too, was leaning into trust. Like I put prayers out, and then one thing by the next, and it was literally like this journey of watching the world, universe, my soul deliver things for me to actually heal and help the world as well. So yeah, so let's get this underway anyway. For you, I know, like I said, with my modalities, I very much try and bring people into presence and grounding before they start, and connecting into their breath, and I then show them a way to actually quickly reset that meridian system, which allows it basically is a tripping system, because there's one meridian that actually always runs with the sympathetic nervous system, and it's what sends the blood from the frontal lobe into the adrenals and sets off the cortisol, and it's got all those scientifically proven aspects to it, and it's such a simple tool to use, right? And then take people into the next part, because it's when we know we got our ability to meet our trauma or be in those situations, and our nervous system can regulate and we can breathe and ground into those experiences, is where we actually start to release and let go, right? Because the body's not contracted and holding on. So when you were to start something like this, where would you guide people? How do you start to show people the shaking medicine?
Well, the modality, as I share it, and it's the foundational flow, has about 6 parts.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part is definitely what we're doing now, which is the knowledge piece, and it's called soothing the logical mind. Because basically, once we've talked about these things, this animal capacity to shake, to release the coils of the sympathetic activation into the parasympathetic, and then from survival mode into thrival mode, when we use that first part of the puzzle to explain to people what's going to come and that it's okay to shake, that's a very powerful part. And some people only really need to hear that, and then they'll go off and they'll just find they're tremoring on their own,
Mm-hmm.
because it's such an innate capability of the nervous system, and it just placing that little piece of knowledge in there sometimes enough for people to go off and find it themselves. And then if we're going to continue in the session, we would go into what we call the voluntary shaking part of the session, which is basically also to tire out the muscles. So that, I make the joke, if you've already done your 14K hike today, then you don't have to worry right now. But if you're a super fit person and you haven't done that, I want to see your star jumps and push-ups. So that kind of thing, or I put on a couple of really great dance tracks and we dance around. Depending, if I've been at a festival for 4 days, I usually just do the entire session on the ground because nobody wants to be standing at that point. So I'm very flexible with how I do it. It could look like a bit of movement, a bit of stretching. It could be some guided action. It could be growing from a seed to a tree. It could be whatever it is that I feel energetically called to share from where I'm at in my space, from where the other participants are at. So it's tiring out the muscles. And then the third space we usually go into is then one of the most crucial parts, which is the intention setting. Of course, as you know, the power of the mind is very important in any therapeutic space. So we invite the participants to then, it's kind of the switch over into the inwards journey, and we're not really looking at anyone else anymore after that. We're not really present in the space in terms of, looking at anyone. Or some people always looking at others. Are they shaking? Are they shaking? But the idea is turn inward, tap into yourself, tune in. I say put your hand on your heart and one on your belly or your womb space, and really feel into if there's something alive in you right now that you're ready to release. So we go into that intention setting space. Then we start with, then we go into the activation phase. And then that's using the tools and the techniques of the finding your bandwidth and tuning into your own radio station is the analogy that we like to use. Is, in an old radio dial, you're just tuning just that tiny little bit to find that beautiful frequency where your song, and I like to say your body is playing its song the way that it needs to sing right now. So the modality shares the shake in a way that's so subtle and almost not moving at all, and then your body will just go off. Usually, some people who have the really strong logical mind, the gym junkies, the really, really strict yoginis, it might take them up to about 3 sessions to get the idea to surrender and soften and allow and release, because they're so used to holding on tightly to their body and the control. So this is about softening and allowing the control to come from within, letting go of that brain kind of barrier. And then we do that activation phase of self-regulation, which is the most important part of the technique to make it safe and sustainable, which is switching it off and on 3 times, so that we're in full control of our shaking mechanism, our tremoring mechanism. This is a very crucial part of the shaking medicine technique, because if we don't teach people how to switch it off and on, we're not supporting the longevity of their capability. And this isn't a beginner's class. We're really trying to keep the knowledge for safe, sustainable way to shake for a beginner is switching it off and on and off. And I'll say, just know, because once someone gets the shake, it feels so good, they don't want to stop. And I'm like, no, we have to actually stop. So when you turn it off, know that you'll be able to switch it back on again to 100 in the next activation space. So then we do that a few times. And then, of course, at all points, it's invitational only to keep activating. It's very common for me to say, if you just tune in, sometimes I might do a yoga nidra just to check in with the system, find if you still have any spaces that you need to release from. If you feel you've had enough, stay in Shavasana, stay in this stillness. And then, of course, then we go into the Shavasana, which is, it can be anywhere from 5 minutes, 10 is optimal if you're in a short time frame, to half an hour if I've got a full sound bath going. Or I could just play some like solfeggio frequency style music to really ground into that bliss state. And then usually when people come out of their experience, there's no words. It's very hard to come back out, and then you'll only get 1 or 2 people in a big group of maybe a dozen people that actually want to share their experience or have even the capacity to talk, because you're going into a really deep healing, quantum healing space of like theta brainwaves, and you're just not really able to, you don't want to come out. So often I'll do a session. I used to do online sessions every week. Right before bedtime, I'll say, go and brush your teeth, get in your pajamas and come and lie down on the mat. And then I'll say, okay, now we're done. Everyone go to bed. And I don't hold space for the Shavasana. I just say, please go straight to bed now. Good night, and lie down, because the integration, as you know, with any therapy is the most important part. If you're not integrating your journeys, your medicine journeys, then what's the point? And the shaking medicine journey is no different. And if we take an all night long to integrate that beautiful shaking, so, before bed's a great time to shake, basically. And then you can experience a really deep, blissful state of peace and sleep, the best night's sleep you've ever had, really. So that's a little
the 6 stages, right? And I love it. I love how you've broken it down, and it feels very, very relatable to how I take people through the processes as well. Because, as you said, the integration, for me, if I was to, like, as you were saying that, it's like, firstly, the knowledge I talk to people about, because you can get all these tools without actually being able to recognize when your body's going into this fight and flight, or into a stress response or fear response. Because some people say, oh, they don't even realize like the subtle triggers that are happening, and they're actually in that state, and then it's amplifying, and therefore they're in that pattern, until we notice the head chaos coming in, or the disconnect from our body. We're not going to be able to just go, okay, I've got this tool now, right? But once we start to train the nervous system to be able to know when it turns off, like naturally turns on and then turns off, right? It's like that bit you were saying at the end of like, turns on, now teaching it how to turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. And that way it's like, so for me it starts to become a subconscious thing, right? Because we're resetting the body's natural ability. Originally, in if our body weren't we weren't trained or taught to not do certain things that our body actually intelligently wanted us to do as children, our bodies would, like animals, just reset, whether it's to go into a freeze mode and then, we come through it. But we're taught that when we're in freeze, push through that response, but we don't even realize whether it's staying on long-term or turning off, and that for me is really a beautiful place, because the emotions and the chaos and the things that are occurring in our lives, when we look at it, then we're going, okay, actually I'm probably in this state of being. It doesn't have to be extreme, right, where I'm having suicidal thoughts, or it can be very subtle, and it can be on and navigating and controlling us, right? And I love that you took them into some sort of dancing, or something that gets the body moving, because it's actually, I just did the gym this morning, right? So yes, I'm a bit of a yoga gym junkie myself. right? But for me, it's because it's getting my body moving. But then afterwards, I quite often will stop and I connect into my body and I breathe through my body and I allow myself to feel the movement of my muscles is really about getting my body moving, you know, and I can let go and move when, you know, I know even Nicole, you go to like the ecstatic dances and we allow our bodies to feel free and connect into the moment. And that allows for energy to start to move. You know, your intention setting, for me, it's like, yes, engaging the mind, but also where attention goes, energy flows, right? Where it's like we are actually in command of this. If we start to know that actually when we start to create these intentions, we're creating prayer, we're telling our body, we're telling our mind, we're actually telling our energy what we want to do. So if we want to release, if we want to start doing these things and create an inner layer of peace and calmness within us, it's amazing. And I know at the end of all my sessions as well with my clients, I tell them, I want you to just stay and breathe and feel the vibration, feel what that feels like in your body, not just, okay, let's get up and move. No, I want you to actually recognize that, because that allows you to be able to, that's cellular memory, right? It's like ability to go back to a state of being. It's like, actually, I can breathe into that moment because I have memory. I know what that felt like in my being, and it allows for us to keep going back to a balanced state, you know? So I love that what you do is very aligned to how I do it, but I do, like I said, very different and separate ways of sharing. So, well, I feel like we've created the space of a lot of awareness. I'm sure that we're telling people here it's not just trauma, it's stress, right? It's a reset when we know we're being run by chaos in our lives, emotionally or mentally, that we feel disconnected, feel heavy, that we notice we're, you know, we've got children and you're not tolerating the kids, or your tolerance is low. You know, this is all signs that you're in the sympathetic nervous system, you know, and being able to recognize that it's on. And when we have fears and the confused state of mind, when we're not being able to tune into clarity, is a very big sign as well. That overwhelm, right, is another sign for me. And I know this morning when I said to you guys, I flipped 2 cards, and the first one is, I always giggle because they're always so spot on. And the first one that came out, and it jumped out of the deck, is, what is my body telling me right now, right?
Wow, that's amazing.
That was right. And the words behind it are, our body speaks to us through physical pain and discomfort. Our body sends messages for us to look more deeply, see the trapped emotions, the lurking fears, the beliefs that limit you. Listen to your physical body and you will be led to the source of your pain. It's time to get your healing.
Beautiful.
Right? I was like, I'd never seen the card before in the deck, right? Because it's only a newer one that I'm using, and it with some of my align to shine calls and things like that, or you know. And then I thought, okay, I'll ask if there's another one, and another one came, and it was like, from whom can I release my judgment right now? But judgment closes our heart to truth and separates us from love. It binds us to our fears and holds us in shame. On whom are we placing judgment on right now? And often I see people, it's through this experience, they're judging themselves. They're judging that, feeling the pain, feeling the chaos, that they're not good enough, like their reactive behaviors. This was for me a big one, because even then when I had the awareness of stop judging myself, that I, you know, that I was healing and I'm not perfect, and it that itself, then I would judge the judging, you know, oh my God, I'm judging myself again, right? And it was a looping pattern of, you know, realizing that I'm seeking control through that judgment because it's expecting me to be perfect. Oh, I've done the healing and move on. But then the mind and the neuron pathways, even when we release the energy and release the trauma and release the pain in our body, we have neuron pathways that can be still lit up. And they was what I call an echo. So they will echo back to us some of those thoughts. So to see if we're ready to pull that energy back in to keep us in that pattern. And so it's through recognizing, oh, here's the echo. I clear and delete that, using those processes of like, no, actually, I'm not buying into that. I get to choose what I'm defined by. It's just a thought. And breathing into our heart to open our heart so we're connected to the body, to connecting to presence, to connecting to higher vibration, to not closing ourselves off into pain and shame and, you know, all those things. So at the end of this, it says it's time to release the shackles of expectation and be grateful for what it is, right? And funny, when I first said it, looked at the words release, I thought it says a release the shake. And I was like, and then I had to look twice. I was like, oh, it doesn't say shake, it says shackles, right? Because I was like, release the shake, like get it on, you know? But, you know, it's true, right? And so that itself, the judgment is such a big one when we're healing, right? When we are in pain and when we have these triggering patterns and behaviors, they are part of the subconscious sympathetic nervous system's response of safety. Now, as much as their fears and negativity, that system is designed as a protection system. And if we turn around and were to see it like that it was just overprotective. It's an overprotective like mother or a father who are just binding that child in cotton wool, but it's creating all these things so that you won't move because you're confused and in pain and whatever.
Yeah.
And that overprotective system, if we were to stop and say, well, actually, it's just protecting me because it's trying to keep me safe, we can then look at it from a place of love, of like, okay, that system is just designed to keep you alive. Instead of hating on it and beating it up, you're opening yourself to saying, okay, it was just loving me. And that allows you to start to shift that vibration, you know, of shame and judgment, right? So I feel that those two pieces are really, really powerful for us to know. We need to listen to what our body's telling us in the moment through thoughts, actions, feelings, and emotions, but also watching ourselves as we're going into our healing experience, that we're not taking on this high level of judgment because of where we are or where we've been.
Exactly.
And how does that resonate for you too?
Yeah, feels very potent.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so let's start this then. So we've done the discussion, talking about what it is and what that looks like, you know, and it can be such a variation. It does run in the background. It is something that's not always obvious to us as to how, you know, how easily it can turn on, because it turns on all the time and it should be turning off all the time. And most of societies don't. So that's quite normal. Would you like to take us through a movement process, or would you like me to maybe take people into that grounding experience where I say, because for me, it's like you breathe into the ground and bring your consciousness to your feet. It allows us to start to raise our vibration. But I feel like maybe the movement is a great way because that brings us into presence and action and, you know, moving the body. So I'm quite open to either way as to how you want to
Yeah, I'd
allow
love
this to
to
flow.
experience your guiding. That'd be beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. So for me, I tell everyone that why I say to breathe and ground is the grounding itself became, I didn't realize when I started this and when I was starting my nervous system reset, it became the trigger of the cellular memory. So that every time now I just stop and bring my presence to my feet and take that one long, slow breath as if I was breathing the energy of the earth up and over my body. And then I will do this reset process, because this is the thing that's telling the meridian and tricking the body into the dropping out of the sympathetic nervous system. It's that reset. It's a meridian system. It controls it all, right? So that grounding and breathing, though, became like the sort of like the shortcut. Now, every time I just breathe and ground, my body goes, click, you're going into reset now, right? So in short moments, I can instantly now, just as soon as I connect to the ground and breathing. And this is actually interesting because that process of the grounding and breathing, when my Kundalini started to rise and went through my massive, like, full-blown awakening where every sense of my body was just so heightened in this loving experience that, you know, I remember hearing Joe Dispenza and other people talk about it, where you're connected to everything, but you're also like very here as well. You know, it was the breathing and grounding, because as the energy was moving through my body, my head was like, what is happening? And I just feel, and I feel my body, and I was like, it feels actually kind of really nice inside my body. It's this sensation that's moving. It's different, but it feels good. So the breathing and grounding just kept regulating my nervous system. My system would trigger again, and then I breathe and ground. My system would trigger again, and I was just breathing and grounding. And that was allowing that energy and that experience to move all the way through my vagus nerve and my spinal. And then all of a sudden I was like in this like spiritual orgasmic state for hours, right? And it started in a yoga class, to be funny. And I remember as I was like there and I laying down and I'm trying to breathe and ground, and I was like, I feel like I need to moan. I feel like I need to like let this vibration. I felt like my body just wanted to shake and like, you know, tremor in the experience. And I'm in a good life. It's not like a fancy yoga. It's like the, you know, mainstream people are not quite up there with all the spirituality. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? So it was really phenomenal. But I then realized it was the grounding and the breathing that kept resetting my nervous system, because it had been the lead way to me using this other system for so long. So right now, what I would encourage everybody listening, and if you're on the replay as well, like for you guys and of course beautiful Nicole, and so it's just closing our eyes for a moment and taking our awareness down to your feet. I want you to feel your feet on the ground connected to the earth, right? Because your consciousness moves with direction. So as we feel the earth and feel the connection, feel the floor, feel what that feels like. Is it hard? Is it carpet? What does that energy feel like as your or presence to the floor feel like? Right? And then I just want you to take a breath, and long and slow. I really want you to really draw that breath out. And as you're breathing it in, I want you to be pulling, imagining you're pulling energy from the earth or from the ground up into your legs. You're bringing it up into your body, but into the back part of your body. So you're following your spine. And it's sometimes people sort of don't know how to create that awareness. You just take your attention from your feet to your legs, to your bum, to your lower back, to your higher back as you're breathing in, all the way to your head. Then as you breathe out, I want you to then start to send that breath down the front. So going towards your nose, front of your throat, down towards your heart, down towards your belly. It's a circular breath, breathing up the back to the head. And when you can get that after 1 or 2 breaths, I just want you to hold when you get to the head for just a moment, not stressing the system out, but really slowing yourself down into this breath. As I breathe in, I'm receiving energy from the earth. I'm grounding. The grounding allows me to raise my vibration. As I breathe out, I'm breathing down the front. In this breath, I'm bringing the energy. It's connecting to the heart and connecting it to my head. As I breathe out, it's connecting my head to my heart. My mind and my body will become in coherence. It means I'm not just in my head, I'm connecting to my body and my head. I am present with both. And coherence is a massive thing for us to feel balanced, to feel grounded, to feel presence. Now I'd like you both to just place one hand at your belly button and another hand just at your third eye, which is just between your eyebrows, right? And with the hand at your belly button and the hand at your third eye, just gently pulling up, and then do another one of these breaths, this circular breath. When we touch these 2 meridian points within the body, it moves any energy that's trapped in overthinking from the head and allows it to move into the body as well. Allows ourselves to feel more present and connected to the body. Now taking both hands, and just continue the slow breathing. You don't have to do the circular breathing. I want you just to do this really long and slow breathing. 2 hands across our forehead, catching our eyebrows as well, meeting the fingers in the middle, putting pressure on the forehead. It is important that we put pressure because we're pushing blood out of the skin at the front of the head, which is triggering the opposite effect to what happens when we go into stress. We're going to start to slowly, with that long and slow breath, pulling our fingers apart. Now, this is scientifically proven, and this is the meridian that actually controls the sympathetic nervous system. It triggers the contraction, taking energy from our chakras, from our autonomic systems, from our digestion, from all the things. And we're going to head towards the temples, just keeping that long and slow breath going. As you get to the temples, I want you to then slowly taking your hands, still with that pressure, going up and over the ears, feeling pressure against the head, around, heading behind the ears and towards the base of your head. So the top of the neck, the base of the head. I usually move my fingers for a moment. It always gives me goosebumps to do that. And with that pressure, we start to head down the back of the neck. And when you get to the base, to the shoulders, squeeze the meaty bit. That's where that muscle is next to the head. And just breathe for a moment, just allowing that long and slow breath. When you feel that there's that moment, it's like I need to just let go, I want you to throw your hands out in front of you. Just shake them out. All right. Now, if you notice that anyone that actually went there, if you notice that there was tension like on that meridian line, this is where you actually do need to do an extra step, and it is just rubbing that, because that indicates that there's blocked acupressure points on that meridian line, right? So by using your breath and bringing intention to bring energy to those areas, we would rub those areas out, right? Wherever that is. I used to get a lot of tension. That became one of the indicators that my sympathetic nervous system had been triggered, as well as the noisy head. I would notice I would get little tension spots in these areas, and that was an indication that something had been stressing me, and that there was a contraction in the muscles of my head, right? And then if you rub that out, you would then again slow and long breaths and redo the whole process. All right. This itself, once you've done it numerous times, can be actually starting to lead you into actually meeting some of the trauma and the trapped emotions in the body. But you have to be able to use the system more consistently. So I tell my clients, start every morning with that. Every night, every time you notice that you're getting a little bit stressed, take that long and slow breath, connect to the ground. That is important. And do this. Then over time, this part, the body automatically does it. It automatically moves the energy through that meridian system to tell you that you want to reset, because you're setting a command that every time I connect to my feet and breathe, I'm moving this energy system to actually bring regulation to my body. So, and then even then I tell people it's another step can be added here is to connect to our heart, to hold the heart, and just to step into a moment of gratitude, right? This is just the gateway to being able to allow ourselves to start to move through the trauma and the stress response. But what we're doing is teaching our body and our nervous system how to reset, how to keep resetting, because every time you do that, you will reset it. Something in your environment might trigger it again in 2 minutes, but you can reset it again. And you keep doing that. And this is allowing your body to then start to go back to its natural state of being of, I turn on because of something, it turns off. It turns on, it turns off. So all of a sudden you're not getting consumed with this state of chaos that runs throughout the body, okay? Coherence is really important as well, because the mind and the body must be connected. And the coherence isn't just the mind and the body, it's the left and the right hemispheres as well. So this is why when we start to get into movement is really important, that as Nancy takes us into some sort of movement, I would encourage that we do some sort of movement that allows you to go from like moving left and then right and then left to right, or crossing over the body, you know, like, so in yoga and other movement processes, they're actually taking you to cross left, then right, or touch your left knee, then your right knee with the opposite hand, right? When this does is it lights up one side of the brain, the other side, one side, one side. So what happens is it starts to signal both sides of the brain to start to talk to each other, because often when we've got a lot of chaos, it might be held in just one component of the brain. So a coherent mind allows us to be able to start thinking straight, but being able to connect to our heart and be guided from the heart and the body allows us to release and actually create calmer states of being instead of being in the head. So this for me is probably a beautiful way for now Nancy to come in and start to create some sort of movement, whether she feels that, yeah, she can flow in from that of the crossover of like, how do we actually create movement where we're like swaying, you know, moving from side to side, or tapping our knees, or, you know, jumping around in that way. Maybe before we do that, do you guys need to do a quick toilet break? Because I know if we start moving around and jumping around, anyone that needs to go to the toilet may actually struggle with that. How are we guys?
All good.
How are you feeling after even just being shown to use that breath? And
I feel very relaxed. It feels great.
yeah, most of my clients that come into me and they've had extreme, they're like, I had one the other day and he's going through a lot of chaos and he came out of the session and felt so calm and at peace. It's like, haven't felt that for so long, right? And it was just by creating coherence of the body, moving through the chakras and the vagus nerve and rebalancing that system. And I messaged him the next day and he said, I feel really great, to be honest. And in my mind, I questioned, this isn't right. How can I feel good when my life is turned upside down right now, right? And that, is one of those things where our mind tells us, oh, well, life's shit at the moment. This is my, relationships are breaking down, or I've lost my job. I can't be happy. I can't be calm. I can't be in a state of peace. We're just so used to our society saying you need to suffer and you need to struggle more. You need to stay there and feel all your pain for so long. But yet we can actually feel pain, move the energy through our body quickly, and then come back to a place of peace where we're actually going to be able to move out of that scenario faster and quicker, or know the next step instead of being trapped in the chaos, right? So yeah. All right. So what do you feel, Nancy? I'm going to let you do some of this.
Yeah, I think we could do some qigong. That's usually something that I do, or some
Yeah.
tapping. But I feel like we can do a little bit of some guided qigong movements.
Okay. Wonderful. Let's start with that. Now, and also I wanted to ask too, I know when we originally spoke, we questioned whether we were going to be able to even get this into like one session. It could end up being quite a long and drawn out process. Right, where we've covered we're going to start this and the movement, and that can allow people to start to just even implement this process for a week or so, every day come in and do some qigong, do this reset, this breathing, starting to come into awareness where they're watching, where they're starting to get triggered in their lives. What are those things that are allowing this to so they're starting to be able to reset. And then do we come back in a week and go into the next real deep shaking and movement pieces, right? Because it could be a couple of hours otherwise. And I know time's very valuable for a lot of people. And I know a lot of people, when they watch things like this, it's like, I've got a stolen moment, I need to do one part. Or do we want to make it one big, long, drawn out system?
Yeah, we'll just do a little bit by bit. I think these grounding tools are really important just for general bringing people into their bodies. And it's very beneficial to start with getting to know these grounding and safety tools, which is what the Qigong is as well.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. When I now know, like if I'm being triggered into something, I know I've got I'm safe. I'm safe. Even knowing I'm feeling a bit crap, I'm safe, and I've got the ability to move out of that state of being. And sometimes I've even allowed myself on the odd day of like, today I'm gonna let myself just be feeling crap today, because what's just happened is pretty full on, but I don't actually have that happen very often. It's only very rarely that, I'm like, okay, today I just need to really honor there's some emotions that need to process. And outside of that, I find that I'm pretty quick to resetting and letting go and moving through things. I feel it. Emotion, energy wants to move. Energy doesn't want to be trapped. So it's only our mind and our beliefs and thoughts and feelings. And if we're in that state of being, that we're going to just keep that idea of suffering to extend,
Exactly.
right? All
Yeah.
right, so let's do some qigong.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And I think, like I said, qigong is really great because you allow ourselves to move from side to side, moving that left, that right side, coherent brain, right? So it's really bringing into the tools of what I understand too. I'm going to move. I'm glad I changed my clothes. Otherwise, I should get my gym clothes on, to be honest.
We won't be doing anything too extreme with this. So we invite to stand feet hip width apart and just having the knees over the feet and a very relaxed posture. So you're only really holding yourself up with enough strength just to stand in a very gentle space. And we're doing some beautiful grounding tools where we will start with our hands just palms up under the belly button. And then we're going to just maybe slightly bend the knees as we're breathing in, and a long, slow breath as we bring the hands down. And then we're going to bring them up the sides of the body. So we're going to do a really long, powerful, slow inhale. And as we come up, we're stretching up, standing tall, reaching up into the heavens, lifting the chin and the chest up with that full expansion of the breath. And then as we're exhaling, we're going to gently bring the fingertips down over the body, just nicely trickling down that heavenly energy as we slowly exhale the longest breath we can for the exhale. And then when the hands come down to the ground again, we'll just bring them in, cupping under the belly a little bit, just feeling that beautiful power center. And then we're going to gently bend the knees again as we bring the hands up the sides of the body with a long inhale, bringing our chest and our chin up to the sky, feeling the third eye opening up into the heavens, reaching up with the fingertips. If you feel cold, you can even stand up on your tippy toes, bringing that beautiful heavenly energy down into the fingertips, and then gently allowing that heavenly energy to come down over the aura, gently trickling with the fingertips over the field as we bring that heavenly energy down. As you exhale, a full release of the lungs, softening the body with a little bit of a gentle bend in the knees. I'm going to try that again one more time, bringing the hands down, breathing in as we take them up the sides. Full open heart stretch, feeling the fingertips reaching up into the heavenly heavens, reaching a hold of that beautiful heavenly energy. And then as we gently soften and exhale, maybe sighing a little bit if that feels good. Slowly exhaling, long breath. Releasing any tension, feeling it all trickle down into the earth. Feeling that earth energy connected in with the roots of the feet. And while we're standing here in this beautiful mountain pose, standing tall with our chest expanding with these beautiful, long, powerful breaths, the longest breath you can. We're going to take a moment here as well to do some spinal breathing. So when we exhale, we're going to lean forward and maybe bringing the elbows into the belly button just to extra push the exhale. And then we're going to lean forward, forward hanging. Maybe let the fingertips touch the ground, letting that breath exhale. And then as we breathe in, we're going to bring the fingertips up the body, just up in front of the body. And then we're going to bring the spinal flex with the elbows bent and the shoulder blades kissing at the back, lifting the chin and the chest up to the sky, feeling that tilt of the pelvis like a dragon's tail, lifting up to the sky. Breathing that full breath in here. And then when we're ready to exhale again, we're going to gently soften and release, forward fold, maybe bringing the hands and elbows together in front of the body. A gentle press into the belly button to exhale there, softening down to the earth as we release that long breath. And just flopping here for a moment with the breath out. Letting that spine extend. And one more big inhale, bringing the fingertips up in front of the legs. Breathing in the long breath here as we reach the arms up in a nice cactus shape with the shoulder blades kissing at the back, lifting the chin and the chest up to the sky, feeling the lungs fill up with air. And then softening again and just coming to a nice mountain pose again, just checking in with the self, how you're feeling with that beautiful experience of that powerful inhale and exhale. And then we're going to bring the hands up to the center of the body, just as though you're holding a little cloud in front of your body, feeling that beautiful energy coming from the Manipura center, solar plexus. And then we're just going to take this beautiful bundle of energy that we're feeling in between our hands, and we're just going to gently, as though we're cuddling a little cloud, just gently twisting the body to one side, Just taking the breath as long as you can in this moment. And just when you come to the edge of your twist, just softly exhaling as you're bringing that beautiful cloud energy, cloud hands across the body again. And all the way to the other side, nice spinal twist here. Gently exhaling the breath as it comes for you. Softening into the long, slow breath here. Maybe with the knees slightly bent, just enough strength to hold yourself upright, but softening into the earth here. Feeling the tendrils and the roots going down, down deep into the earth. As you slowly bring that cloud, those cloud hands across the body. Beautiful slow movement here. And then coming to standing again, just noticing how slow your energy is moving now, nicely centered and grounded here in this moment. Taking a long breath, feeling that belly fill up with this beautiful primordial breath. A long, slow breath that is your friend, softening with every exhale. A little bit more. Just checking in with the self and how your energy is feeling right here. Grounded in the earth, connected into the heavens. And that beautiful conduit, that light energy through your body, connecting that field. In the center of your own universe. And just knowing this beautiful grounding tool of the long breath leans you into your parasympathetic state of rest and digest. And this beautiful Qigong movement of connecting and collecting that energy and growing it and expanding it with the breath. It's a powerful tool for centering and grounding and connecting into your essence, your soul fire, your electricity, and your power. You can feel your connection as you move the energy around in your body and outside the body, playing with that beautiful power of the cosmos that you are connected to. Just tuning into that beautiful long breath at any point in your day that you feel you need that grounding tool to feel those energetic spaces and places inside you, filling up with that prana, that energy of breath, the power of the cosmos that is all around you and inside you and in all of us and connecting all of us together. Connecting us through the breath. A nice soft sigh whenever you need to just let out some somatic sounds. Relaxing the body and the jaw, and the hips will follow. Softening and unclenching the buttocks and any parts of the body that are holding that tension. Knowing that you're deeply rooted in Mother Earth and she's holding you. Full of light energy, love energy, and Mother Earth energy and frequency when we open to her beautiful field that's coursing through us and all nature, all animals, all elements, fire, water, earth, air, and spirit that is deep within our essence. Feeling that beautiful connection to self and to the other, to the world, to the universe. We're all one. Holding yourself with love and gratitude for this beautiful earthly body, this vessel that carries our divine essence through life each and every day with so much love and gratitude for this life that we have. Namaste.
Yeah, I enjoy Qigong because it allows one movement, and I do it a lot through Good Life and their balance class. But a lot of the people that do it, don't realize I use a lot of breath with the movement, even though they say breathe in. But for me, it's the intention. As I breathe in, I'm drawing the energy of the earth through my body. As I come up, I know I'm opening myself to the heavens, and even this, like while we move through the auric field, I set the intention that I'm clearing the stagnant energy of my auric field, because there's that energy that sits within the electromagnetic field. So it's that movement of energy outside of the body that allows, with intention, again, energy moves. So as you're moving the body, if you listen to where your body's like, actually, I just need to move this part of my body. And if you're connecting in, you're like, oh, actually my shoulders feel like they need to move a little bit. And this is the joy and the great thing about using movement, breath, intention, and listening to your body and presence as to what we can actually transform throughout the body, right? And it's allowing us to get out of that head space, but actually just listening within the body's presence, right? And doing a practice. And I say to people, it doesn't take much, to do this breathing and long and slow breaths, is a couple of minutes a day, right? The consistency of pivoting your energy, they say we're creatures of habit, right? And 80% to 95% of your behaviors, your patterns, your feelings, the chemicals that are released through all these are the same as yesterday when they've done a lot of tests in this. So if you've only got a small window of up between 20 and 5%, most of it's 5, and you shift another 5, that's 10 tomorrow. And it's this compounding effect. It's the small things that we can implement into every day throughout our day that can actually allow us to create significant change, for me, even in my stress response, when I get in the shower, I breathe in the energy of the shower. And as it's washing through me, I set the intention that as I move through my body, it's washing away the heaviness, there's so many amazing, simple tools that we can do, but it's in presence, being keeping ourselves present. A lot of stress response in people's body is depression and anxiety, for instance. Anxiety is linked to our future. It's worrying about what's to come. It's constantly, so we're not present. And depression is linked to our past. So it's linked to the past traumas, past, and a lot of depression too is also the void of self. My cat's trying to get in through the door. If you can hear that banging, hang on a sec. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, it's very empowering to have mindfulness and presence in everything we do, and to be able to stand in that space of power with your own presence, of knowing who you are and what you stand for in any moment, and not being able to be swayed from that true essence and that authentic self. It's really potent.
It's deeply potent in the process of healing through our stress response within the body, whether it's anxiety, PTSD, depression. It's linking ourselves to the present. So what tools can we use to come back to presence? And even like one of the biggest ones that I used to do too was in the presence. Like if something was triggering me and I'm in the shops and I can't go into obviously a Qigong practice, or I can do a few, like connect to the breath quickly and breathe up my body. But say if my kids were really going and it was like my body was starting to really overwhelm, I would even just stop for a second and just do a breath and just slowly just tingle the inside of my hands, right? It's the somaticness of using the senses, right? So using the touch and just being, okay, what can I touch? What can I see in my environment right now that's allowing me to come back into this moment where I can start to gain control of the the chaos that's starting to erupt within my body, so it's not going to take over my body, right? And so,
Mm.
the feather touch was one of my favorite ones in the beginning of my healing process, because it was just, again, bringing my consciousness from my head. You can't be in a sensation of touch and be in the chaos in your head, right? So it allows, again, just to be in the moment. And then therefore we can be like, actually, what does my body need? And that's a big thing, is asking, what does my body really need right now? Does
Yeah.
it need to scream it out for a second and like allow that part of me to be heard, these thoughts and these feelings? Because often that's a lot of things that people are like, got this unexpressed words and feelings that they just want to release, right? But you can do that in a healthy way. I used to set pillows up and be like, I just need to let this out, and just
Yeah.
let that voice be heard, and it doesn't have to be defined and out of control. And then all of a sudden I feel this lightness come through my body. Or sometimes it's like, yeah, my back just needs to move for a minute, and I need to open my ribs up. And that these kind of
Be
tools are super
simple.
powerful.
As if you're spending a lot of time being a mother, or being someone that is somebody for somebody else, something, and you haven't got a lot of that time and autonomy to just do yourself every day, then the overwhelm could be as simple as when you say, oh, what do I need? Is you might just need a sip of water, or go to the toilet, or some nourishing food. And then that can be what you're calling out for as well in those moments, because it's those simple things that we often neglect when we're so busy caring for others, is that we're not caring for ourselves enough. And then, if you are programmed that way to care for others before yourself, then what happens is you become so depleted that no one can pour from an empty cup. And in fact, you shouldn't be pouring at all. You should be overflowing, and people fill up from the overflow of your abundance, because pouring
Mhm.
from any kind of cup means you're going to be depleting.
And I guess this would be a reflection on my own journey, was when I was in the chaos, when my sympathetic nervous system, my head was so noisy, I would struggle to do the basic things as well. So, one, the reactiveness could be there, but also the idea of, just being concentrating, okay, I've got to do dinner, but now my ability to focus and get things done. So my productivity. So when I started to regulate my nervous system and give myself 10 minutes a day where I just, okay, and I would try this in the morning and I'd be like, no, the kids are not going to let me. They want mom's attention, right? So how can I do this? Maybe it's just in the shower for a minute, right? When I go to eat something, maybe it's just go sit in the sun and sit in just feeling the wind and the sun on my skin, right? But I
Yeah.
made sure every day that I was just trying to implement simple tools into even my everyday processes that were just allowing myself to reset. And before you know it, I noticed I had more time. I was getting things done more efficiently. I was actually, my answers and the clarity around the problems and the things that I needed were coming to me faster, right? So, all of a sudden, everything started to flow with so much more ease, because my body was in more ease. My head was in more ease, right? And this is what a coherent or balanced state starts to do. It actually allows our life to become easier. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but even those times where it's not easy, it's easier because you have tools that you can use to implement into your daily lives, right? And so it's I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, is starting to look at, where can I implement simple tools? Because I couldn't go meditate for an hour. I couldn't take an hour every day to do processes when I had a 1-year-old at my feet,
Yeah.
and all the things, right? So most people are time poor, right?
Space,
How
if you can create that space for yourself. And the other key factor I see a lot in people is, it's not just the creating of the space and then implementing those tools, it's the language that you're using and speaking to yourself around that. Like if you say, oh, I really don't have the capacity to cook dinner tonight, just go and order the takeaway, and don't beat yourself up about it, because that is you creating space and that mental relaxation for yourself to say, I'm not making a mess in the kitchen tonight. I'm going to have an extra 10 minutes and go me. It's
Yeah,
that
yeah. Well, if it is,
negative
if it's
self-talk to get rid
if it's
of.
making, I mean, if it's making 2-minute noodles, I mean, I love eating healthy, right? But it's like, what can you do to yourself sometimes to create space so that you're allowing yourself to be in presence, and that's hard because it is, people are time poor, and that's where I find a lot of people struggle. It's like, how do you set the alarm for 5 minutes extra in the morning? And I started doing that. I knew my kids would wake up around this time. I used to get annoyed a little bit when they'd get up with me, and I'd be like, no, I set the alarm to be up early and to do, and then I was like, nope, this is not benefiting me, right? But like, how do we create just a little bit of space for ourselves? Because it's also telling the universe what's important to us, and our well-being, our health, our like being calm and peaceful in this coherent state should be important. And the universe, it's like one of the number one universal laws is you need to tell the universe who's a priority, and you are. And again, you can't give to others, or you can't be as efficient at your job and everything else in your life if you're not actually giving to yourself and filling your cup up. And the biggest thing I find is that this is one of those things I say to people too, that when we're in a sympathetic nervous system response, it's like you wake up in the morning and say you have your house is run on a battery, right? You go around and you're going to turn on every light switch and every power point and everything in the house is running. That's what's happening within the body because it's siphoning all the energy. So even though you've slept, people wake up and they're like, I just feel like I've no energy, right? I feel dense. I feel, or I'm through partway through my day. I've got nothing because your system's actually using, and now it's going into the reserve batteries. And when you go into the reserve batteries, we actually start to lead into sickness, right? So it's this a system of like, okay, if I can just every time, once a day, just do a breathing process, reset my nervous system to turn that system off, so we're not draining, we're actually putting energy back into the system, right? Because it's those things, it's the parasympathetic system that allows energy to flow into our body, but it's a sympathetic system that actually just depletes it all, right? So this is also one of those really powerful things for people to understand is that if you're feeling really exhausted all the time, it's likely that your system is just on overdrive in this, and you need to be doing the tools to give back energy to the body to feel yourself again.
Yeah, cultivating that chi.
100%, 100%. So how are we good? Are we good for here? So what will we cover then
Yep.
in our next session? What would we like to do?
Yeah,
Because we've gone for an hour and a half.
we'll go into the technique, into the shaking medicine modality. I'll do a deep dive into a beginner session where we can really come prepared with if there's something that you're holding on your heart or somewhere in the body, if you know that there's something that you've talked through talk therapy and you're really ready to release that from the body, then come prepared with that kind of awareness, and we'll do some tapping to bring those things up to enable them to then be released through the tools that we can learn through the technique.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So it's like coming in and saying, okay, what is it that we feel like releasing? Sometimes we don't even know, but we're like, okay, I know I've got lots of stuff to release. And it's like, okay, letting the body also tell us this is what it needs right now is to release this thing, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's you have no idea why, this part of your body is just going to go like this for half an hour. And when I did my first TRE session, the lady explained it, that when she first did TRE, her left arm was going like this for half an hour, and she didn't understand what the tremoring was held in that part of her body for so long. And then she remembered, oh, I was a warrant signer for 8 years, and she was literally, that was her left hand signing on the dotted line people's livelihoods or lives. So she was holding on to a lot of stuck tension and trauma from that, and energetic frequency in that part of her body. So you just never know where things are stored. You might know you've had a broken limb, or you've got a broken heart, and all the things that you can physically or emotionally release. But there's always so much in the energetic realm as well that we might not have a name for.
And yeah, it's trusting the body's intelligence, right? And that's for me, it's like tuning in. It's like, and when I take people through alchemy sessions and we do this and we start to take them into like, okay, like feel in the body. Where's the first place you're drawn to? Where can you feel heaviness? And what does that like? How does that, if you were to put a name to it, and or an object to that? what would that look like, you know? And so often the objects don't have to make sense, right? But it's just allowing us to be like, okay, I can see this piece and this is what it represents to my mind. It doesn't have to make sense though, right? And then that's a way of like listening, you know, like if I feel into my body, it's like, oh, there's a place that feels tight and tense right now. And asking my body, what does it need to move and how does it want to move in this moment? And this is actually allowing ourselves to tap into the divine intelligence that your body is. Your body in every minute and every moment of the day is healing itself. It's doing osmosis, it's taking in energy, it's, you know, your heart's beating. There's all these things that are happening that
So,
we are actually not conscious of, you know?
yeah, so much magic within
So much.
there within us. We just need to have some trust.
Yeah. And listen, just listen to your body. If your body's talking to you, you know, so often, yeah, the mind kind of takes us out of the body, but if it's the body, and I'm a lot of the time like, listen to my body. And through this whole healing, it's interesting because I was, you know, I do yoga and things like that now. I am the most flexible now than I ever was as a child or anything like that because I've moved the joints and allowed my body to talk to me and listen to me, and I breathe into, you know, where I feel the tension in those moments, and then it allows my body to actually relax and expand more. And when I've won sessions with people that do different types of movement massage and that, they're like, oh my gosh, your joints and your ability to move your own body is so much more like wider than most of them had ever seen. And it was just because, like, for me, I believe it's because I keep moving the energy of my body, right? And I keep listening to the body and how it wants to expand, using my breath and listening to the intelligence of that. And I wish that the world would be taught these things. I wish the world was taught about you only have two states of being in most instances. Some people debate this, but it's thriving or surviving. It's you know, it's sympathetic nervous system or parasympathetic nervous system, you know, and it is literally run on this system, right? So you have two states of being. Are you thriving in life, and do you feel passion, and do you feel happiness, do you feel fulfillment or calm and peace and all those things that are high vibrational, or are you in the density, and that's the frequencies below the energy of love, where it's shame and guilt and fear and limitations and self-doubt and all those things, and grief, right? And grief is something where most of us experience, you know, but it's how do we process that through the body and listen to the body for it to let it out, yeah, instead of holding it in, because so often we do.
Yeah, the opposite of grief is joy, and when you can go deep into those extremes, then you can go deeper into those extremes. And that's what I found is I have a very high capacity for both now, deep into the grief and deep into the joy. And I've been cultivating that capability within my nervous system for so long now that it comes naturally. And like you say, I feel that my body is living in that space where I don't even need to do a visible shake. My cells are always vibrating in this frequency now, and that's due to leaning into the trust.
Mm. Yeah,
Feeling.
beautiful. It becomes sympathetic, like, sorry, sympathetic. It becomes subconscious, right? Like the systems that I use, like I said, the breath and grounding. When I start to do this now, if you use those together, eventually every time you ground and breathe, your nervous system will automatically know you're going into a reset. And the more times we do just those simple processes daily, we actually create the neuron pathways. We actually create the neuroplasticity of removing that glue off those old ones and putting it on the new one. And then that becomes subconscious. It doesn't mean that those other pathways don't exist within the brain. They could get lit up for a moment, but it doesn't mean they become the controlling thing. It just means that we experience grief, that grief neuron pathway lights up, we go through that motion. It's only when we allow that to become consistent day in, day out, day in, day out. So the sympathetic nervous system, if it's day on, all the time on, that becomes this neuron pathway that's just lit up. And it's actually retraining our brain to go back into, okay, and it's all science, right? But there is this science behind why these tools are so powerful and being proven, right? The
You've got to feel
tapping.
it to heal it. You know, you do, and I feel it, and then I heal it, and then I'm done with it, and I'll go deep into the grief, and I'll cry in a puddle on the dance floor for a few minutes, and then I'll get up and keep dancing. You know, and that's the beauty of these kinds of experiences and safe spaces that we hold for each other.
And within ourselves, right? It's within
Yeah.
ourselves. We need to feel the safety within ourselves, right?
Oh,
And I think the worst thing is most people don't feel safe in their how they are. They start that awareness, but that is their safety system, right? And that's what's became the normal for their safety to feel like shit, right? And so when we start to cultivate this awareness that actually there is a different way that our body and our nervous system can function in places and environments and moments that can be triggering to the nervous system, we actually are upgrading and evolving and actually creating a whole different layer or level of life. And it's quite interesting what comes into our world once we're in those states of being, because my whole life completely pivoted in things constantly beyond my wildest dreams and
yeah.
experiences and
Synchronicities.
yeah, it just, and the diversity of life, right? I realized that sometimes those divots and pain have been some of the biggest blessings I could have been given, because they've given me so many gifts to actually experience now the other side of that spectrum. So, yeah. So no, it's been beautiful today, guys. We'll have to set up another time and
Ellie?
a day
Okay.
post for us to start to do number 2, and we'll just hashtag it all out. We'll be really brief at the beginning stages
Yeah.
around, okay, if you haven't, and let's get in straight into the process of the shaking medicine. Maybe the movement a little bit before, and
Yeah.
and a quick breathing and grounding, and it'll be like pretty much us just dropping into a whole process that people can just use then. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share that.
Cool, awesome, excellent. And hopefully, Nicole, you'll be able to join us for the second part of our magic. And I am going to, well, everyone that's been listening today, if you guys have enjoyed this, there will be a part 2, of course. And I will be posting the event again on Energetically Inspired and in the Collective Rising. And if you're following, of course, the amazing Uma Nancy, she will also be sharing the event in her pages as well. But look for the part 2. It'll be very much linked together. And as well, I will eventually link each other around when they're recorded and things like that, so people can actually follow along on the sequence of it all. But if you want to connect with either of us, is there anywhere, like for anyone also, if they feel like they just want to come and experience this shaking with you on their own, Nancy, how do they connect with you?
They can connect with me on my Tremor Remedy pages on Facebook or Instagram. I'm
Okay.
accessible. Or yeah, I've got 5 Fridays in August coming up in Newcastle at the moment. Very excited to be sharing my work with my new hood and all my community here that I've been befriending since November, and lots of other different places around the East Coast, and going to Melbourne in September, and yeah, lots of
You
exciting
spread,
things coming up.
yeah, spreading the light. So is it called that? Sorry, is it called the Tremor Remedy? Is it called Tremor
Yeah,
Remedy? Is that
Tremor Remedy, one word, Tremor Remedy, Tremoremedy.
okay? One word,
Yep.
not broken down into several.
No,
Okay, cool.
simple word, and that's what it is. The tremoring is the remedy, and I really love sharing the shake with everyone. So I look forward to
Nice, wonderful. And everyone, if you guys are looking for me, I'm Kelli Hurley, and it's Energetically Inspired, 2 words. And I'm on most platforms. You'll find me YouTube, Facebook, Insta. Not that I use Insta too much, even TikTok. So yeah, beautiful people. We look forward to sharing more magic. There will be more other amazing special guests coming into the space as well. We've had a couple of recently who are all beautiful, heart-led soul entrepreneurs, all here helping raise the vibration. For me, it's really about, like when I created my program Quantify, it was about helping create sustainability for all these beautiful heart-centered people so that they can share their magic. If they step into a level of sustainability in their businesses, they're going to be able to share, raise the vibration and reach more people. But it's also, for me, it's like, actually, what about also like in my beginning stages, I didn't have a lot of money to invest or things like that. So for me, the collective rising is about, sharing multiple beautiful people's gifts, to allow people to heal, to raise their vibration, to step into their purpose, to passion, to fulfillment, to whatever that is for them, a beautiful life, right? So thank you guys for joining us today for part 1 of this event. And we look forward to seeing you guys in part 2 or on any of the other collective rising series or in our personal spaces. All right, beautiful people.
you.
All right, I'm going to end the recording.